Hey everyone, and welcome to this week's seminar. We are going to be talking about why your neighbor's home might sell in 8 days and yours could sit on the market for 60. This is something that is a real problem in a shifting market. And without further ado, I am going to get started with the slide presentation. Okay, here we go. Why your neighbor's house sold in 8 days and yours could sit for 60. So if you have ever wondered how that could happen, your neighbor's house has on the market for 8 days, multiple offers. Your house is in the same neighborhood, same size, same condition. What the heck happens? I think the answer might surprise you, but it's definitive, and there are things that you can do to avoid this. The spoiler is it wasn't luck. It was strategy and probably a little bit of staging magic. I'm going to show you what happens behind the scenes and how to get that house that sells in 8 days in any market. So here's a secret that maybe not all sellers know. Buyers don't actually fall in love in your kitchen. Yes, kitchens and bathrooms can sell homes. That's true under certain circumstances, but that is not what makes them fall in love. The first 7 seconds of the showing is what makes them fall in love. It's before they see the countertops, before they check in your closets and see how much space there is, and it's before they even walk inside the house. Here's what buyers judge in the first 7 seconds. They judge the front door. Is it clean and welcoming, or is it faded and sad? I have been to, tiny little houses in an alley with no parking, and they had an adorable front porch with a little seat and a wreath, and the house just looked so cheery and welcoming. And ultimately, my buyers bought that one. Number two, landscaping. Is it neatly trimmed, or are you giving off jungle vibes? This is just like decluttering your house. I trust me, your English garden does not look like an English garden. It looks like it needs to be weeded. And that is not to be mean. That is just how buyers are going to see it. They want to see things that are neat and tidy. And that goes for the landscaping as well. Number three, lighting. Um, this is exterior lighting, but it's important on the inside of the house as well. So a lot of people, myself included, we've got porch lights that go on at dusk, or we have motion sensors that turn on our porch light as we arrive to the house. You may want to think about changing that setting when you're doing showings so that when they pull up to the house, the lights are already on. Have the lights on. If you are living in the house and you know that people are coming for showings, turn all the lights on so they don't have to find the light switches. They're going to walk in and your house is going to be glowing. And they won't have to worry about where are the light switches? How do I turn the light on? And that is especially important if you have rooms that don't have overhead lighting. Number four, smells. What does your house smell like when you first walk in? Is it fresh? Is it clean? Does it smell like, I don't know, does it smell like laundry, or does it smell like tonight's dinner? That is very important to buyers, and it's going to color the way they walk through the house and everything that they feel about it. Even if it's a temporary smell, like you cooked fish and Brussels sprouts for dinner, buyers consciously know that that smell is not going to stay, but subconsciously, it still makes them feel less than comfortable in the home. And they certainly can't imagine themselves living in a house that smells like that. Number five is the entryway. Is it open and bright, or is it a coat avalanche? I am guilty of hanging my coat on the back of the kitchen chair. I'm probably never going to make it to the coat closet on a regular weekday, but when company comes over, I hang everything up. Treat it like that. You want your entryway to be open and bright. It is your first impression after all. Number six is cleanliness. Is your house spotless, or are there dust bunnies everywhere? I'm going to tell you a quick story about this. My own house, I overlooked quite a lot of things when I purchased my house. I really couldn't see beyond how clean it was. I'm talking like the furnace room was clean. Furnace was shiny. The oil tank was cleaned. It was crazy how clean this house was. And whether it was true or not, it made me feel like the owners really cared about the house and that they took care of it and did all of the maintenance on it. I didn't care what color the walls were painted or what kind of furniture they had. I couldn't see past how clean it was. So that can, it sounds like it's a minor thing, but it can really, really make a huge difference. And number seven, space clarity. Can they tell what each room is for? If you have a room that doesn't have any furniture in it, but you know that it can fit a bed, if you've got a bed, you might want to put one in there just so that they can see that a bed will fit. Oftentimes that's what's missing. You can tell a buyer that a room is big enough for a double bed or a king size bed, but until they see it, they really can't feel what it feels like and they really don't believe it. Okay, here are the 6 strategic decisions that make a home sell fast. I'm going to go into detail on each of these, but this is just the list. Number 1 is a pre-listing inspection. Find problems before buyers do. Most people don't do this. I almost never see it, and it is the one thing that I think sells a house faster than almost any of the rest of the things on this list. Number 2, strategic repairs. Kind of goes along with number 1, but regardless of whether you do number 1 or not, you can do strategic repairs. You can fix the things that matter and skip the things that don't. Number 3, staging. You want to make buyers see their future home, not the home that you have. So this is where we get into making things a little bit more vanilla so that it appeals to the most broad audience. Number 4 is pricing strategy. This is probably tied with number 1 for the thing that I think is going to sell your home, is most important in selling your home. And I will talk about how to price your home right, what happens when you don't. Number 5, professional photos. This is non-negotiable. When you list with me and my team, professional photos are included. So the only time we don't do professional photos is if we perhaps have a rental property. There's just not enough time. It's a different timeline, but every listing of a home for sale that we do is going to have professional photos. The only time we would not do it is if you request not to have photos. It is non-negotiable, is one of the most important things, but it's not on your list. It's on our to-do list. And number 6 is timing. When you list can make a difference, but doesn't mean that you can't overcome that one with all the rest of the things. All right, first up, the pre-listing inspection. This is really just a this is just an inspection company, I should say, coming in to do an inspection for the seller prior to listing. The cost is about $400 to $600. Most of the time, it's not a full inspection, the same inspection that a buyer would get. It can be a little bit less expensive than that full inspection, but here's why it matters. When you have that pre-listing inspection, and the intention of getting this inspection is not for your own benefit, it partially, but it's to give it to the buyers, in case that wasn't clear in the first slide. So with this, you control the narrative about any issues in the house. You're saying, here are the issues. We're going to fix these, or we know that they exist. So there's no surprises during negotiation. It shows the buyer that you are trustworthy and that you are transparent. They see that you're sharing this pre-listing inspection, that you've taken the time to do it, number 1, and that you're sharing it with them, shows them you have nothing to hide. And it gives the perception that you're going to be easier to work with and easier to negotiate with. And just in general, they feel better about the transaction. It also gives you the opportunity to fix what matters and skip the things that don't impact the sale. When you do that up front, you can hand the buyers this pre-listing inspection that has all of these items checked off and say, listen, here's the things the inspector found. Here's the things that we fixed. Here's the things that are still outstanding. We priced the house in consideration of those items. Now think about yourself in the buyer's shoes for a second. You have 2 houses. They're both exactly the same. Same block, same build year, exactly the same price. One of them has a pre-listing inspection. Which one are you going to see first? Okay, now you've gone to see them. Maybe you go down the block and you see the other one, maybe you don't. Let's say you've seen them both. Which one are you going to make an offer on? You're going to make an offer on the one that has the pre-listing inspection because it gives you a sense of security. Now, when you make that offer as the buyer, are you going to do your own inspections? Maybe, maybe you are, but maybe, and more likely, you're not going to do inspections because you have this inspection. You already know what's wrong with the house. It's already been addressed. It's out in the open. There's no question. Inspections are to address questions, not to necessarily fix everything. So you can see how this is a huge benefit to sellers, and this is going to become increasingly important, especially as we come into the shifting market that we're headed towards. Decision number 2, strategic repairs. This goes along with the inspection, but even if you don't do the inspection, you still want to fix what matters and skip what doesn't. So we're talking about what kind of fixes are going to give you a high return on your investment versus which ones are going to cost more than you can ever recoup in the sale. High ROI fixes, the ones that are best to do, are fresh paint in neutral colors, deep cleaning, plus carpet cleaning if you've got carpets, landscaping and curb appeal, and light fixtures that actually work. You can replace the bulbs, make sure everything is the same color light bulb, I mean, not different colors. That can actually be very jarring subconsciously. But this is all something that your real estate agent can suggest to you. But these are also things that cost very little. And most of the time, you're going to do these items yourself. You're probably not even going to hire anybody to do some of these things. Maybe carpet cleaning. Maybe you hire a painter or a landscaper, but they're inexpensive. Other column are things that you probably are not going to need to do. A full kitchen renovation, a new roof, fancy upgrades that buyers won't pay for. These things are not going to sell your house. I was in a toilet with, I was in a toilet. I wasn't in a toilet. I was in a house with fancy toilets the other day. And I know those toilets cost probably 5, 6 times as much as a regular toilet. And my buyers were actually just confused. They didn't know why they had these fancy toilets that, had an electronic toilet seat and a bidet and all the rest of this stuff. And my point is just this. That's cool. And if you already have that in your house, don't take it out. But please don't install that for the buyers because it's just going to be money out the door. It's not going to make them buy the house for more than it already is. There are other lower cost ways to address some of these issues too. So, we talk about that in some of our upcoming seminars where we talk about $3,000 versus $30,000 to get your house prepped and ready to go. Number 3 is staging. First impressions are everything. We know this, but staging does not mean spending $10,000 on renting furniture. It's about decluttering. And I say ruthlessly here because what I mean is when you've decluttered and you have all these things on the counter, take 3 more away and then you're finally decluttered. Like when you think you're good, do a little bit more. Depersonalize. If you can, get rid of your family photos. I'm not saying if you have a family photo wall, take all the pictures down unless you're planning on painting and spackling. In that case, a blank wall is fine, but use your judgment on this. If you can, if you've got big wedding photos, canvases, that kind of thing, you may want to replace that with something more neutral. And, people don't often think of this, but you don't need to buy art. You can borrow art from one of your friends if you have someone who's willing to do that for you. I mean, most people are willing to have nothing on their wall for a few days just to help you stage without spending that money. Next one on the list is neutralize. I am one who likes color. My house has a lot of color, but I realize that if I'm going to take the time to paint, I'm going to paint the house beige. That's why builders paint the house beige. They have interior designers and they certainly could pick nice, bold colors that look stunning in a new construction home, but they don't. They paint it neutral because they want everybody to feel comfortable in that house. And your buyer's probably going to come in and paint anyway. So if you're going to take the time to paint, go neutral. If you're not painting, Don't feel like you need to do this. Maybe the colors are fine as is. Again, this is a conversation to have with a third party like your real estate agent, someone who can see your house a little bit more objectively. And the last one on this list is maximize space. You may need to move your furniture around to make the rooms feel bigger and brighter. You might need to just push things in a different way that they're not necessarily staged for how you live, but staged for how the buyer is going to walk through the house. Okay, here's some statistics about staged homes in case you didn't believe me. The numbers don't lie. 73% faster sales when you stage your home. This is 3/4 faster than unstaged homes. I mean, that is a huge, huge percentage. And time is money. The longer you are on the market, the less you are going to sell for. That is always the case. You will also get, in case that wasn't enough, a 5 to 10% higher price. Staging increases that final sale price because it lowers the amount of time on the market, makes your house more desirable, and you're going to get 3 times more showings. These numbers are a little bit backwards. 3 times more showings leads to 73% faster sales, which leads to 5 to 10% higher price. Decision number 4 is pricing strategy. Price it right or watch it sit. This is something you really need a real estate agent who understands what the market is doing, where it's going, where it's been, and how to price your house right. You can't just pull comps on your house and say, well, the neighbor's house sold in October for $300,000, so I'm going to list for that today. If you live in the Lehigh Valley today, end of January 2026, and we're having that conversation, we're not pricing the house where other houses were priced in August of last year. We need to look at where houses were priced a year ago because that's where the market is going. We need to be in front of the market, not behind it. We cannot be chasing the curve or we'll never get there. We're always going to be behind. All right, I'm going to show you something on the next page that makes a little bit more sense. Here's what happens to overpriced homes. Week 1 and 2, you have it overpriced. You said, let's just try 350. You get a few showings. People are curious, but most buyers skip it. Now, why do they skip it? Because buyers who are truly priced in the 350 range are going to look at your house and they're going to say, this is worse than everything else in the 350 range. Then you're going to have the buyers, your real buyers who are in the 300 range. They're going to look at it and they're going to say, I can't afford an extra $50,000. So what happens is almost nobody comes to see it. Week 3 to 4, you start having that, what's wrong with it? And you're thinking, I don't have any showings. My house has been on the market 3 to 4 weeks. I'm not seeing any showings anymore. It's just sitting. It's like crickets. So by week 5 and 6, you're doing the first price cut number 1. It's too little and it's too late because you're already into another pricing structure. If I was to do a listing presentation week 1, or really 2 weeks before week 1, because you have some time before you actually go live, 8 weeks later, the price is going to be different. That's almost a full quarter later. So you do that first price cut, you cut from 350, let's say you go to 340. It's not enough. You get no showings. So week 7 or 8, you're starting to get desperate. You need to get some showings in there. Now you need to cut the price again. Let's say you're going to go a little more drastic. You're going to do $20,000. You should have done $30,000 in the first place, but you only did 10 because you still wanted to see what happened. So now you're going to go down another 20. Now you're at, where are we at here? 320. So now we're at 320. Your house still isn't sold. But guess what happens? Now, maybe buyers are looking at it a little bit, but they're not looking at it because it's the best priced house. They're not looking at it because it's the best house in the price range. Now they're looking at it because you've lowered your price twice. And you know what they think? Number 1, they think they can get a deal. Then the second thing they're going to think is that you're difficult to work with. They're going to think that you don't have good representation, and they're going to think that you want more than your house is worth. So when they make that offer, not only is it going to be lower than the price cut that you just did, but it is going to have every single inspection on it. It is going to be protecting them to the maximum because they are going to have this perception that you are difficult to work with. So in the end, you may sell your house for $295. If you had priced it at $300 to start with, and that house was the best house in the price range, you would have had multiple showings. People would have made offers on that, and you could have sold it for 310 or 320, which is where you were in the first place. Week 7 or 8, you got there, but you got there from the other direction. And getting there from the other direction, it doesn't count. It works completely differently. One works for you and the other one works against you. And I've seen it many times. I cannot tell you how many times this happens. And this can even happen when you price it right because the market can be that volatile. That is why we're going to review your price every 1 to 2 weeks. We are constantly going to be looking at how many showings do we have? How much interest do we have? Not just showings, but do we have 2 to 3 showings a week minimum? Are those agents saying, yes, it was close, we liked it, it just didn't have the right yard, or it was in the wrong school district? What are the agents saying? And we're going to be doing aggressive price reductions, and we're going to be having that conversation every 2 weeks so that we don't get to week 7 or 8 where people start thinking, what's wrong with this house? Okay, this is one of the hardest things to do. It's one of the hardest things for agents to do. You really need an experienced agent who understands how this works, and then you need to trust them. Okay, decision number 5. This one's a little bit lighter, professional photos. First of all, it's easy because if you hire us, we're doing professional photos. You're not paying for that. We're going to pay for those, and we do them on all of our listings. And we believe in them that much. Photos matter more than ever in this market. 90% of online searches start with the first photo. Now, here in the Lehigh Valley, we're required to show an exterior photo as the main photo. So we can't show your gorgeous chef's kitchen as the first photo. In some of the other MLS areas, like the Poconos, you can show whatever you want as the first photo, but we do have to show the outside first. So people expect to see that. Once they get past that first picture, and that's where curb appeal can really make a big difference. Once we get past that, you have mere moments to make an impression on them. 7 pictures, maybe 10, but I believe the statistic is 7 to 10 photos is how many they will look at before they click off to the next thing. Buyers today do not have the same attention span. They are not clicking through. They don't see that you have 96 photos, and they're not going to click through 12 pictures of your yard and then the garage. And they don't care that that's how you approach the house and that's how you come in. It is not a walkthrough. It is not a video. The first 10 pictures absolutely need to be your best 10 spaces, period. The things that are going to sell your house. Then you can do a little bit of a tour. I walk from this room to the next room to the next room. After you get past those first 10, you've got them. They want to see more. They're going to go through the rest. So the cost doesn't matter, but the value of this is priceless, and that's why it is a non-negotiable. Next on the list is timing. When you list matters. The best times to list in the Lehigh Valley are March into May. This is how you get into that peak spring market. Buyers are active, they're motivated, they want to start their search, they want to be done and in the house by the end of summer. They want to move when it's warm, and they want to have time to be ready for school to start. September and October is also a strong time. That's where you're going to catch the fall market. It's before the holidays. This is kind of like round 2 of buyers. This is the people who were not ready to go in the spring, but are ready now. Maybe they don't have kids, but they still want to move before the holidays. Challenging times to list, late November into January. Pretty much that whole end of the year season can be challenging, and July and August is a little bit challenging when people are on vacation. But I will tell you that if your home is right with all of those things that we talked about, any time of year can work. So if you need to sell in November, you don't need to wait We just have to address all of the things that could happen during that period. Okay. And homes sell successfully in those periods because there may be less buyers, but those buyers are more motivated because there is less inventory for them to look at. So there's different ways that you can look at it. Benefits to both of them. Okay. Here's what really makes homes sit for 60 plus days. It's the slow sale reality. These are all the things we just talked about. No pre-inspection. So buyers, they don't know anything about the house. So they're going to have a lot of questions and they're not going to feel good about it. Deferred maintenance is visible. When buyers see these problems, it's the same thing as not having the pre-inspection. They think you didn't care for the house. They think that there must be bigger things wrong that they don't know about. If the house is cluttered and personal, it could make them feel really like they're walking through someone else's house, and subconsciously they might not be able to see themselves living there. If it's overpriced by 10 to 15%, you're not even going to get the buyers in. Like I said, they're going to skip it entirely in their search. And then even if you eventually come down in price, they're going to be trying to negotiate you down even lower than that. And they're going to have more contingencies. iPhone photos. iPhones are great, but they are not the same as professional photos. They don't have a wide angle. They don't have the same lighting. I mean, if you think you can't tell cell phone photos, you can. And the difference that is beyond just what you're using to take the photos is who is doing it. I fancy myself to be a little bit of a photographer, but guess what? Compared to my professional photographer, my photos are terrible. So I do a decent job, decent enough, but not decent enough for your listing. You need a professional photographer. There are so many more things included in this than just snapping the photo. And I'm not going to get into what they are, but believe me, it's real. And then the last thing is that you may have listed during the slow season where your neighbor's house was listed during the hot market. So just by nature of the timeline, you may sell a little bit slower during that period, even if you do the rest of the things on this list. Okay, so I'm not going to give the example. I've given lots of examples. We understand how this works. Here is your pre-listing checklist. So get your listing inspection, make the repairs, anything you can tick off that list. Tick it off. We're going to make a list of the things that you've done so that buyers understand that X, Y, and Z on this pre-listing inspection is done. You're going to declutter and depersonalize. We already talked about that in the 90-day declutter. You should be starting that now and taking it in small bites. Get a CMA from an agent. This is really just a place to start. CMA stands for Comparative Market Analysis. Really, what you should be doing is having a more in-depth conversation with an agent, because a CMA is only showing you a snapshot of what things look like today. You need to talk about your timeline and talk about where you might be pricing when it comes time to list. And even if that is 1 or 2 months away, you need to revisit pricing. So if you talk to an agent today and they give you a price and they do not give you a different price, you need to understand why that is, if it's 2 to 3 months from the first time that you talk. Number 5, hire a professional photographer. That one is a tongue twister. A pro photographer. First impressions are going to determine all of your showings. If you don't have that, then you're not going to get any showings, regardless of what your house really looks like. And then number 6 is plan your timing. Don't list until you're ready. I mean, rushing costs you time and money. So unless you have somewhere that you need to be, and if that's the case, call an agent, call myself, call someone to come in and talk to you and do triage. You can say, I just got a new job. I need to be out of here in 3 months. What do we need to do? Sometimes you just have to do what you have to do. But rushing, generally speaking, will cost you time and money. Okay, that is it for us today. I don't see any questions in the chat. So I'm going to move on and we are going to say goodnight for today. Next week, actually not next week. This is not correct. We had to move next week's. We're going to be coming in the first week of February and we're going to be doing new construction versus resale. And what we're going to be talking about is the long-term benefits and potential costs of each of those, and you may be surprised where the numbers come out. Okay. Thank you so much for attending, and I am so glad to see everyone tonight, and I will talk to you in a couple of weeks. Bye.